The story begins with an evil kingpin sitting down for a meeting with his associates, reminding them that they have been in the temp business for over 15 years. You can already tell that this is a man who has very little regard for other human beings, as he has men serving as chairs for his associates to sit on, and he even uses one of their hands as an ashtray. Today marks a significant occasion for their shady operation, so they decide to celebrate. A glass of wine is poured by a guy with glasses and then passed over to a tester to take a sip first and confirm there is no poison before the kingpin drinks it. The tester takes a sip and gives the all clear, saying the drink is clean. With that, the kingpin pours himself a glass and takes a sip. But almost immediately after that single sip, he begins to collapse, making it clear that the drink was in fact poisoned. The others immediately grab the tester, assuming he is the one behind it, but it was actually the work of the guy who poured the drink in the first place, Hikaru Jiro. With that handled, Jiro changes back into his regular clothes and heads home. But on the way he spots a beautiful blonde girl kissing a man inside his car. Jiro gets so caught up watching them that he walks straight into a wall. Later that night, after Jiro gets home, where he settles in with some ice cream, while his younger sister Akari asks him how he managed to slip the poison past the poison tester. Jiro explains that all he did was slowly build up an immunity in the tester over time. He spent 3 months quietly adding small doses of poison to the tester's food until his body was able to withstand a lethal amount. Akari hears this and says that must have been an enormous amount of effort, and Jiro admits it definitely was. Nobody would ever expect someone to go to such ridiculous lengths, and that is exactly why they are able to stay in the hitman business. That aside, Akari asks Jiro whether he has given any thought to getting married, and Jiro nearly chokes on his ice cream at the question. Jiro is honestly convinced he has very little hope of ever getting married, especially since he barely comes into contact with women in this line of work. He recalls that their grandmother wants one of them to take over as the new head of the Poison clan, and when he told her he could not because he was single, she went ahead and matched him up with a complete stranger from a branch family and nearly pushed him into getting married on the spot. Jiro knows this means that if he stays single, the line of Poison masters will end with him. Akari acknowledges that, adding that it is not as if she can really picture girls chasing after him anyway. Jiro then pulls out his phone and sees a message from the Bugmaster, so he heads out to grab a bite with him. They make small talk for a while and Jiro brings up how he plans on spending the rest of his life as a single man. But that is when the Bugmaster mentions that he is actually thinking about getting married soon to a quiet and sweet girl he met not too long ago. Jiro genuinely finds this surprising because he always assumed the Bugmaster would end up growing old alone. That aside, the Bugmaster makes a point of reminding Jiro that just because he is getting married does not change the fact that they are still good friends. With that said, the Bugmaster activates his bug legs and begins to leave, but Jiro calls him back at the last second and tells him that he has always looked at marriage as something negative. But after hearing him talk about it tonight, he is starting to think it might not be so bad after all. The next day, Jiro heads to a new job, and on the way there, the man who hired him starts talking about the girls who work at his office, but Jiro just brushes it off and tells him to keep his eyes on what they came there to do. That aside, his man goes on to introduce Jiro to the next criminal on the list that needs to be taken out, a woman named May, a cold-hearted marriage swindler who has been causing a great deal of trouble. He asks Jiro to handle her. Jiro wastes no time and injects her with a serum, telling her she is about to experience severe nerve paralysis that will work its way up toward the brain. He tells her that within seconds she is going to be in agony, feeling as though she is being torn apart from the inside. But rather than being frightened by this, May just starts flirting with Jiro. Jiro does not take the bait and figures it is nothing more than a last-ditch attempt to save herself. May admits that she did con people, but explains that she mainly did it to pay for treatment for her younger brother who is very sick. She says she grabbed every opportunity she could find and took on jobs she could never tell a single person about. But even that was never enough. She coughs up some blood as the poison begins to take hold, and adds that if she is going to die with someone who looks just like the man she loves watching over her, then she supposes that is good enough for her. She looks Jiro straight in the eyes and asks him to at least tell her his name before it is over. Jiro feels a slight warmth rise to his face as he quietly tells her. Meanwhile, the man watches Jiro work through a screen, and the girls around start to wonder why it is taking him so long, questioning whether he is actually as good as people say. But the man just tells them to relax because he comes from the Jiro family, one of the oldest and most respected names in the assassination business, so he has no doubt he will get the job done. Back with Jiro, he finds himself genuinely wondering whether Mei actually has real feelings for him, but that is when Akari suddenly calls and tells him that she is moving back to the main house because she has decided to help produce the next heir to the Jiro family and the new poison master. One of the branch family members is also looking for a partner, so she has decided to simply marry him. Jiro cuts her off and tells her she does not have to go that far, but Akari reminds him that their grandmother is completely serious about getting an heir, and even said that if Akari refuses, she will strip away her freedom and force the matter. So Akari would rather do things her own way and on her own terms. Jiro asks what will happen to her girlfriend, and Akari simply says she is going to have to end things with her. Jiro tells her to hold on and not do anything just yet. He walks back over to Mei and asks her to marry him. He explains that in order to become the head of the Poison clan, he needs to be married, and since she at least has feelings for him, he wants it to be her. He also mentions that he would be able to help with her brother's illness on top of that. Mei looks up at him with a bright expression that briefly makes Jiro smile, but then her face goes completely cold as she tells him there is absolutely no way she would ever agree to that. She explains that she knew she was going to die anyway, so she just wanted to take one last shot at something for the fun of it, and now she can go in peace. She then tells him that other people fall in love and get married because they are genuinely right for each other, but in his case, he is never going to be a good match for someone he could end at any moment without a second thought. She tells him that if he ever wants to be a good match for someone, he has to start by being honest about how he really feels, because a marriage built only for inheritance will never last. Jiro hears this and finally opens up. He tells her that even though he is meant to be a cold-blooded assassin, he still wants a quiet life with someone he loves. He wants someone who will love him for who he is and truly care about his feelings. But he believes that will never happen because he never went to a normal school and never had the chance to meet any girls. He has lived his whole life as a poison master, and he was trained to never open his heart to anyone. Mei starts to laugh when she hears this because he just shared his feelings with her even though they only just met. She tells him it is not as hard as he thinks. All he needs to do is meet different kinds of people, and sooner or later he will find the right one. Then she tells him to just finish the job. As she says this, she begins to cry, realizing that her little brother's medical bills will never be paid now. Suddenly, the handler arrives with his group and tells Jiro to stop wasting time and kill Mei already. But Jiro refuses. He says he is not going to kill her because he needs her. He believes that Mei must be skilled at bringing people together if she was chosen to marry into their group, so he wants to hire her for that. He promises that he will do everything he can to keep her and her little brother alive, and in return, he wants her to help him find someone to marry. Mei is surprised and a bit excited when she hears this, because no one has ever said something like that to her before, but a bullet suddenly flies past her face. The handler says he is disappointed in Jiro, and now he has no choice but to kill him. He adds that killing the heir of the poison master will push them to the top of their field. Jiro says that the handler and his group ruin people's lives by stealing jobs from ordinary people and then blackmailing them with what they find. Jiro explains that he only kills bad people without guilt, so that means they all qualify. Jiro then injects himself with one of his serums, and it affects his body right away. His eyes turn green, and he puts on a gas mask. The handler and his group start shooting at him without holding back, but when the bullets stop, both Jiro and Mei are gone. The handler looks up and sees them on the ceiling, but by then it is already too late. In the next moment, all of his men are on the ground, weak and unable to stand, because Jiro has poisoned them. Mei is shocked to see how skilled Jiro really is, because she thought he was just talking before. Jiro tells her that he only used his 300 torments of hell poison, so they will not die, but the pain and fear should be enough to keep them from doing this kind of work again. After that, Jiro calls Akari and tells her not to break up with her girlfriend, because he is going to get married and take over as the new head of the Poison clan. Akari is happy to hear this. At that moment, the handler tries to escape. However, he runs straight into a one-way mirror and gets stuck. Jiro then throws a poison needle into his back, giving him the same effect as the others and stopping him from getting away. After that, they leave the building and get ready to enter a taxi. quickly. Mei still cannot move because she is in the chair, so she asks Jiro to carry her. Jiro starts to panic right away because he has never touched a girl outside of work. Mei tells him to relax, then reveals that she is actually a guy. This shocks Jiro and leaves him speechless. They go to a hotel where Jiro confirms that Mei is really a guy. He asks why Mei wears women's clothes. Mei explains that he dresses as a woman when he tricks men, and dresses as a man when he tricks women. He says it is more fun to play both sides. Mei then promises Jiro that by the time he is done helping him, he will be able to attract both men and women. Mei tells Jiro that he has already signed him up for a matchmaking event and asks him to fill in his details. The next day, they attend the event and notice that there are far more men than women. To fix this, Mei dresses as a woman and draws attention from many of the men, which reduces the number of rivals Jiro has to deal with. Jiro learns that first impressions matter a lot, so Mei decides they need to find his natural charm and bring it out. When Jiro talks to his first girl, he immediately tells her that he makes millions of dollars every year. This causes her to lose interest and reject him. When he tells Mei what happened, Mei is not surprised. He explains that leading with money only makes him look arrogant. Mei tells Jiro to smile more next time. When Jiro tries this with another group of girls, his smile looks forced and uncomfortable, and they all reject him. By the end of the day, Jiro becomes frustrated because everything went worse than he expected. Mei then shows Jiro a dating app that he signed him up for and tells him he already has a date. Later, during the date, Jiro struggles to eat because he was trained as a poison master to never eat food he did not prepare himself. By the time he finally gathers the courage to take a bite, his date has already left. After all this, they decide to stop for the day and try again tomorrow. As Mei turns to go home, a jeep suddenly drives past, and someone pulls him inside before speeding away. Jiro sees this and runs after the car, but he cannot catch up. Inside the car, the man asks Mei what he did to his older brother, the handler from earlier, and why he suddenly left the family cleaning services. Mei says he knows nothing about it, but the man does not believe him. He shoots a lead pellet at Mei from his mouth, which hits his face and causes pain. Mei still denies any knowledge. The man prepares to fire again. At that moment, the driver sees Jiro standing in the middle of the road. They decide not to stop and try to run him over. Just before the car hits him, Jiro jumps over it and strikes it with a special thermo poison. The attack is strong enough to split the moving car into two parts. Jiro chases the broken car and catches up. As Mei's side of the car begins to fall off a bridge, Jiro reaches him just in time and pulls him to safety, while the others fall into the water below. As Jiro holds Mei, he returns the phone Mei dropped earlier and thanks him for the day. He says that because of Mei, he was able to meet many girls in one day. He admits that he is not good at this, but he still wants Mei's help. Mei realizes that Jiro did not even get a single contact from the event, so he asks for Jiro's number. Mei becomes Jiro's first real friend, even though he doubts he will make many more. As they walk back together, Mei looks at Jiro and feels drawn to him. In that moment, he understands that this is Jiro's true charm. The next day, Mei shows Jiro a flyer and tells him to meet her the following afternoon at the Avocado Oceanic Art Gallery. Jiro has absolutely no idea how an art gallery on a cruise ship has anything to do with helping him find his charm, but Mei just tells him to trust the process and go along with it. Then the next day, Mei meets up with Jiro at the entrance to the cruise ship and Jiro is genuinely stunned by how beautiful she looks. Shortly after, the two of them step inside the art gallery and Jiro is immediately caught off guard by just how breathtaking the scenery inside is, though he still cannot figure out why Mei brought him here of all places. Mei then explains that today is going to serve as his rehearsal for what a first date should actually look and feel like, with her playing the role of his date. She points out that even if Jiro were to somehow manage to get a girl's number and set up a real date, the way he carries himself right now would make the whole thing go terribly, so she thinks it is far better to go in having practiced and prepared properly. Their mock date gets underway and Mei starts deducting points from Jiro every time he comes across as either too stiff or too awkward in the way he acts. But then, after a little while of walking around, Jiro stops in his tracks when he spots a 40-year-old DIY candy kit on display, valued at over 30 million yen. Something about it gets Jiro talking naturally and with genuine personality, and he ends up having a surprisingly charming conversation with Mei all about the candy kit without even trying. Mei is impressed enough to award him 30 bonus points on the spot hot, and for the first time she feels a real sense of hope for what he might be capable of. A little while later, Mei draws Jiro's attention to a strange-looking man sitting on the floor nearby, fidgeting away to himself, and she asks Jiro what he makes of him. Jiro's first instinct is that the man must either be homeless or dealing with some kind of mental health issue. But then a group of tourists suddenly spot the man and immediately flock around him in excitement. Mei explains that the man is none other than Mr. Shiratori, one of the most celebrated and well-known young painters in the entire country. She uses him as a living example to show Jiro that people are generally drawn to others because of their unique talents and gifts. Mr. Shiratori might look and behave in a way that seems completely odd to a stranger, but his fans would not have him any other way because he has already won them over entirely through his extraordinary ability. Jiro takes that on board, but tells her he does not think he has anything like that going for him. Mei tells him that he is wrong about that. She brings up what happened back with the handler, where he cleared out an entire room full of dangerous men and got her out of there all on his own. She tells him she has absolutely no doubt that something like that is a genuine part of his charm. With that said, she tells him to forget about dating apps and matchmaking parties because she believes the best way for him to find a partner is by helping people. She suggests things like rescuing hostages, protecting important people, and letting girls notice him while he does good work. Jiro is surprised by this idea because he is a poison master and his usual job is to assassinate people. However, Mei explains that there is no rule that says he cannot also help others. Hearing this makes Jiro start to think about it seriously. Later that night, the guards notice that a valuable piece of artwork is missing. They quickly assume that Himekawa is responsible. The guards inform the ship's pilot, and he starts checking for any nearby boats that might have left the cruise ship. When he finds nothing, they conclude that Himekawa must still be somewhere on board. What they do not realize is that Himekawa is already far below sea level, moving toward land with her shark, Chomsky. She arrives near the shore and sees her teammates waving at her, so she believes she has escaped safely. Suddenly, a whirlpool forms and pulls her teammates in, catching her by surprise, and then a person in a white suit jumps down toward her. At the same time, Jiro and Mei are at a buffet. Jiro is now seriously thinking about the idea of saving people, so he asks Mei where he can find jobs like that. Mei shows him a website called Dark Nav, where different kinds of jobs are listed, including capturing criminals and stopping smugglers. She is surprised that Jiro has never heard of it before, and Jiro explains that he usually gets his work through brokers. Jiro spends some time looking through the website until he finds a rescue mission involving Himekawa. The report says that she has been captured by bandits who are demanding the return of artworks that law enforcement has taken in exchange for her release. Himekawa is known by many as a famous thief, but the truth is different. Wealthy and cruel collectors often steal art from people who cannot defend themselves, and Himekawa secretly returns those stolen pieces to their rightful owners. Because of this, she has loyal supporters. A fan club dedicated to her is the one that hired Jiro to rescue her. Mei is not at all surprised that Jiro is the only one who showed up for the job, since there would not be many people willing to take on something this high risk for such little pay, though she figures this might actually work in their favor, because with barely any competition around, it gives Jiro the perfect opportunity to step up and be her knight in shining armor. Jiro introduces himself as one of the poison masters, and the men who hired him are visibly stunned to find themselves in the presence of an actual poison master. Meanwhile, the kidnapper leans over to Himekawa and taunts her, telling her he has never come across anyone as beautiful as her before and asking her to switch sides and join him. But Himekawa refuses flat out, telling him that she only steals for causes she genuinely believes in and that her mission is to return every piece of artwork he has stolen back to the people it rightfully belongs to. One of the paintings he took belonged to a little girl whose mother had passed away, and Himekawa once made that little girl a personal promise that she was going to steal it back for her no matter what. The kidnapper gets irritated hearing all of this and calls Ushio over, who grabs her by the throat and dumps water over her without a second thought. Meanwhile, Jiro and Mei get the rescue mission underway and work their way through a mall. That is when they come around a corner and run straight into two guards armed with guns. But Jiro steps right in front of her and drops both guards with a single split kick before they can do anything. Mei starts to think she should just hang back and sit the rest of the mission out, but Jiro reaches down and helps her back up, telling her plainly that he needs her with him again, which is enough to give her the boost of confidence she needs to keep going. Meanwhile, Ushio continues to pour his ferrofluid over Himekawa, but the boss tells him to cut it out and go deal with the intruders who have just broken in. So Ushio heads off to take care of them. Back with Jiro and Mei as they continue pushing forward through the ship. Jiro starts quietly rehearsing the lines he plans to use on Himekawa when he finally gets to her. That is when they walk straight into another group of guards blocking their path, but Jiro handles all of them with ease using his martial arts, casually taking each one down while continuing to practice his pickup lines out loud with Mei in between strikes. They both then enter an elevator together and go down to the lower area. At the same time, the boss aims a gun at Himekawa. At first, she thinks he is going to kill her in a weak way, but then he changes and points the gun at the painting instead. He tells her to obey everything he says, or he will destroy the painting. Himekawa immediately realizes it is the same painting she promised to return to a small girl. She cannot allow it to be damaged, so she agrees to follow his orders without resistance. Then suddenly, the boss's arms are blown off by an unknown force, and he becomes extremely scared and starts panicking. After that, a strange being appears from the wall, moves into his body, and burns him alive from inside. However, this is not actually happening in reality. It is only a hallucination created because of the poison that Jiro had previously given him. Jiro then walks forward calmly and introduces himself to Himekawa. He tells her that he is the master who has come to rescue her. Himekawa is shocked that a master personally came to save her. She also quickly tells Jiro that she does not have enough money to pay him for this job, which catches him completely off guard because he did not plan what to say next after his introduction. Right after that, Mei enters the room and starts trying to remove the chains that are holding Himekawa, but suddenly, Ushio appears from behind and grabs Himekawa tightly, stopping her movement. In response to this, Jiro immediately injects himself with an augmentation serum that increases his physical abilities many times over his normal limit. He then rushes straight toward Ushio, but she suddenly disappears from sight and reappears somewhere else, leaving Himekawa behind in the middle of the confusion. Because of this, Jiro quickly throws Himekawa over toward Mei so she can keep her safe and out of danger. Ushio then attacks using water fists. The force of her attack is so strong that it breaks the floor beneath them and causes them both to fall and continue fighting on a lower level of the building. After that, Ushio quickly dashes toward Jiro again, but instead of continuing to attack immediately, she suddenly apologizes to him for not introducing herself properly earlier. She then offers him her business card. She already knows that Jiro is a poison master, and she asks him if he wants to settle the situation privately instead of fighting. Ushio explains that she is also a water master. She believes that if two masters fight seriously, the damage will be too large and will go far beyond what Jiro is being paid for this job. Because of that, she offers him 10 times the amount his client originally promised if he agrees to leave Himekawa and walk away from the mission completely. Meanwhile, Mei is watching everything happening, and she is completely confused about the situation. At that moment, Jiro's augmentation syringe rolls across the ground toward her. She notices that there is still some liquid left inside it and reaches out to take it, but Jiro suddenly yells at her not to touch it. Ushio sees this reaction and immediately understands that the substance is not a normal serum, but actually a very dangerous poison. Ushio then explains that masters inherit modified bloodlines that are connected to their special abilities. In the case of poison masters, their bloodline strengthens their body when exposed to a lethal dose of poison. However, Jiro explains that this is not the full truth. He adds that it is actually also a curse that forces poison masters to finish their target before their own body shuts down completely. Since Ushio is also a master, Jiro assumes she must also have a modified bloodline as well, even though her water control ability looks almost like magic to him. However, Ushio does not respond to this assumption. Instead, she asks Jiro once again whether he is willing to reach an agreement and settle things peacefully. When Jiro refuses again, Ushio immediately begins attacking him. At first, the fight is going in her favor, and she is clearly overpowering him, but Jiro quickly changes the situation by coating her glove with thermopoison, which causes it to explode suddenly. That small opening gives Jiro the chance he needs, and he follows up quickly with another attack that knocks Ushio to the ground. As Ushio slowly gets back up, she is shocked and confused about how Jiro managed to hit her 3 times in a row at exactly the same point with millimeter level precision. Jiro then speaks and says says that he is doing all of this for Himekawa. Even though they are strangers right now, he believes she might become very important to him in the future. Because of that, he is willing to risk his life completely on that possibility, even if it ends up killing him. Ushio hears what Jiro says, and it makes her think that he has gone soft. Because of that, she immediately unleashes her Hell's Lashes modified bloodline and attacks him using high-pressure streams of water. The attacks come rapidly and with great force, but Jiro manages to dodge all of them. However, during the exchange, Mei gets hit by one of the attacks, which causes Jiro to become worried about her condition. As the fight continues, Himekawa asks Mei if she is okay and questions why she is going this far. Mei responds by saying that this is simply their job, and their main priority right now is to get her to safety. She tells Himekawa to stop worrying about them and just run away while she still can. However, Himekawa refuses to leave. She is not the type of person who runs away when things become dangerous. Instead, she asks Mei how she can help, and as they think about it, both of them notice the poison syringe lying nearby. Meanwhile, Jiro is starting to get overwhelmed by Ushio. He has already used up all his needles and poisons, and without them, he cannot properly fight back. At the same time, Ushio's constant attacks make it difficult for him to get close enough to face her directly. In the middle of the battle, Jiro's thoughts drift back to his childhood. He remembers being trained by the head of the Poison Clan. During that time, he was warned that no one must ever learn about the Poison Clan's modified bloodline. If anyone were to discover it for any reason, he must eliminate them without hesitation. Jiro snaps out of the memory and refocuses on the fight. Just then, Himekawa suddenly drops down on top of him and presents the poison syringe to him. Jiro reminds her that he is there to rescue her and tells her again to run away. However, Himekawa refuses and says she is not someone who wants to be saved like a helpless princess. Because of that, she is willing to fight and help him instead. Suddenly, Ushio uses her Hydra tentacles to grab Himekawa and pull her away. She mocks Himekawa for being foolish enough to come down and involve herself in the fight. At that moment, Jiro stands up and firmly holds the syringe in his hand. Ushio immediately recognizes what it is and tells him to drop it right away. Jiro lets the syringe fall to the ground. As soon as he does that, he rushes toward Ushio at incredible speed. While he sprints, she looks at the syringe and realizes it is empty. This makes her understand that Jiro has already taken the poison dose. By the time she realizes this, it is already too late. Jiro moves in and strikes her with a poisoned needle directly to the neck. The attack takes effect instantly, and Ushio collapses on the spot. After that, Jiro catches Himekawa and holds her in his arms. However, as he does this, he suddenly realizes that his hands are in the no-touch zone. This causes him to panic, and he quickly looks up at Mei, asking for help. Shortly after, Ushio wakes up and sees Jiro looking over her. Jiro calmly explains her water technique and mentions that he has read about it many times in the Poison Clan's library. Ushio feels confused because she cannot understand why he chose not to kill her when he clearly had the chance to do so. Jiro then explains that he came here to retrieve Himekawa, not to kill her. Now that he has defeated her, he believes that is enough to teach her a lesson, so she will not interfere with him again. As for the other kidnapper, Jiro also decides not to kill him. Instead, he lets him go with a warning. This decision annoys Ushio, and she calls Jiro soft for sparing them. Jiro responds by saying that if anyone crosses him again, they will face his Thousand Torments toxin, making it clear that he is still dangerous if pushed too far. Mei then asks Himekawa if she is okay with how things turned out. Himekawa replies that it is fine with her because she does not plan on getting captured again in the first place. After that, she offers to give Jiro and Mei a ride. They are both shocked and almost panic when they realize they will be riding on Himekawa's pet shark, Chomsky, as they head back. Some time later, Himekawa visits Aegea and returns the painting of her mother. Aegea and her father are both happy and relieved to have it back. At the same time, the Himekawa fan club watches this moment through a camera and becomes emotional, finding the scene very touching. Meanwhile, Jiro stands awkwardly in a corner, unsure of what to do. Himekawa calls him over because Aegea wants to thank him personally. Jiro shuffles forward, and as Aegea thanks him, he begins to feel emotional. Himekawa also thanks Jiro for saving her. She admits that when she first heard he was a poison master, she assumed he would be cold and heartless. However, she now sees that he is different, which causes Jiro to blush slightly. Mei then speaks up and tells Jiro that she never had the chance to properly thank him for paying for her brother's treatment. She shows him pictures pictures that her brother sent, showing his recovery progress. She expresses how grateful she is for what Jiro has done. Mei points out that Jiro has positively impacted many people's lives, even if he does not realize it. She tells him that he should accept the praise he is receiving. Hearing all of this makes Jiro very emotional, and he quietly walks off toward the bathroom to let it all out. However, before he can stay there, the Himekawa fan club calls him back to discuss his payment for the job. At that moment, Himekawa speaks up and explains that they do not have enough money to pay him for his services. Instead, she says she is willing to offer anything else as compensation. Hearing this makes Jiro visibly flustered. Mei then speaks up and suggests that the three of them should go out and celebrate. Later that evening, Jiro and Himekawa sit together awkwardly, waiting for Mei to arrive. However, Mei intentionally decides not to show up because she wants to leave Jiro alone with Himekawa and see if any kind of connection or spark can develop between them. She sends Jiro a message, telling him that she will not be able to make it after all and that he will have to handle things on his own. When Jiro reads the message, he nearly panics as he realizes that it will just be him and Himekawa for the entire night. Himekawa then takes Jiro to a shark convention. It is very clear that this kind of event is not Jiro's style, but Himekawa is clearly enjoying herself and having a great time. After that, they sit down for dinner. Meanwhile, Mei is secretly watching them from a distance. However, she quickly realizes that Jiro has already figured out that she set up this entire thing. Mei remembers that she had previously told Jiro to always compliment a girl on what she is wearing, but instead of doing that, Jiro awkwardly comments that Himekawa's necklace looks like an old keepsake. This leaves both Mei and Himekawa completely speechless. Jiro then tries several different ways to start a conversation with Himekawa, but every attempt fails and becomes more awkward than the last. Mei watches everything unfold and realizes that the situation is turning into a complete mess. She decides that she has no choice but to step in and help. She connects her phone to a nearby monitor and sends signals to Jiro, guiding him on what to say. She encourages him to start small talk by asking Himekawa about her childhood. The restaurant manager notices what Mei is doing and tells her to stop, but she quickly rizzes him into staying quiet and letting her continue. Back at the table, Himekawa notices that Jiro has barely touched his food and asks him about it. Jiro explains that because he was trained from a young age to become a poison master, he cannot safely eat food that he didn't prepare himself. He says that since he was a child, he has always cooked his own meals and eaten alone. Himekawa says she understands that feeling to some extent. She explains that she was also alone for most of her childhood. She didn't have a family and had no friends at the orphanage where she grew up. One day, a wealthy man who was close to death decided to adopt her. However, it was not because he cared about her personally, but because he realized he had no one to inherit his wealth and legacy and became afraid. Because of that, she ended up inheriting the Himekawa name and a large fortune. She explains that she could have lived her entire life without ever needing to work. However, one day she discovered a large collection of beautiful art pieces hidden away inside his mansion. When she investigated further, she found out that those artworks had been obtained illegally. She ends up returning all the artwork to their rightful owners, and doing that takes a large amount of money from Himekawa's fortune, leaving her broke. Because of that, she now has to work a part-time job 5 days a week just to survive. After hearing this, Jiro thinks back to how good it felt when people thanked him earlier. He realizes that Himekawa has been doing things like that her entire life. Because of that, he tells her that she is really cool for what she has done. Hearing this, Himekawa begins to tear up slightly as she looks at him, because it is the first time anyone has ever complimented her in that way. The atmosphere between them becomes more serious, and Mei signals to Jiro, encouraging him to go ahead and ask Himekawa to be his girlfriend. Jiro gathers his courage, but instead of asking her out, he asks her to be his friend. This surprises both Himekawa and Mei. Himekawa laughs a little and says she really thought he was about to ask her out. Jiro admits that he did want to, but explains that they don't really know each other yet. He says that even though he may have made a good impression earlier, there are dark parts of himself that he is not proud of and does not want to hide forever. He looks at Himekawa seriously and tells her that he wants her to get to know who he really is. He says that if she can accept him fully after that, then he will properly ask her out. He believes that this is the first step toward the kind of marriage and future he wants. Mei watches all of this happen and is left completely speechless by how things turned out. Himekawa understands what Jiro means means, she agrees that starting as friends is fine with her. However, she also tells him that winning her heart will not be easy. After that, they exchange numbers and Jiro walks her over to her car. Before Himekawa gets into the car, she mentions that since he cannot eat food made by others, she hopes that next time he will cook lunch for them. As he is standing there, Mei suddenly appears behind him and tells him that he has been assigned a new job as a bodyguard for the only daughter of a powerful CEO. Jiro reacts immediately and jumps back, thinking that taking this job would feel like he is cheating on Himekawa. Mei corrects him and explains that it is not cheating because he and Himekawa are only friends at the moment. She also adds that meeting more people, especially different kinds of girls, will help him gain more experience and better understand relationships. Jiro sees the logic in that, so he ends up agreeing. A while later, Jiro begins his job as a bodyguard and takes on a new assignment. His job is to protect the CEO's daughter, Shori, while also accompanying her to a college party. Even though he fully understands that his responsibility is to keep an eye on Shori at all times and make sure nothing happens to her, he starts to feel a little nervous because this is the very first time he has ever gone to a college party. It turns out that Shori is just as socially awkward as Jiro is. She struggles to approach people, make conversation, and fit in with the others around her. Because of that, many of the students at the party begin to think she is a weirdo, which only makes things more uncomfortable for her. The scene then shifts back to the time when Jiro was first introduced to Shori by her uncle, Mitsuhiko. Mitsuhiko explains that he wants to hire Jiro as a bodyguard for Shori, who is set to begin university this spring. However, he believes it would be much better if Jiro handled the job quietly and without standing out too much, so no one would suspect that Shori was being protected. Mitsuhiko then goes on to explain the family situation in more detail. He says that Shiori's father built his massive company from the ground up within a single generation, creating a powerful business empire through his own hard work. Unfortunately, he passed away last year after suffering from illness before his death. However, he left behind a will stating that once Shori became old enough, she would inherit the company and become the next CEO. But that decision has created conflict within the family. Mitsuhiko explains that his older sister, Fudy, believes the company should belong to her instead. She rejects the will and is doing everything she can to make sure that she becomes the one who inherits control of the company. Mitsuhiko admits that he does not know exactly what Fudy is planning, but he has heard disturbing rumors. According to what he has learned, she may have hired someone who uses strange and unusual techniques in order to assassinate Shori. Because of that possibility, Mitsuhiko says he does not want to take even the smallest risk with Shiori's safety. That is why he specifically chose to hire the top member of the Poison Clan, believing Jiro is the best person possible for the job. Not long after that, Mei arrives and gives Jiro a fake student identification card. She tells him that from this point onward, his cover identity will be Oshima, a regular third-year university student. Jiro accepts this new role without much complaint and seems perfectly fine with it. Just then, Shiori timidly speaks up and says that one thing she has always wanted to experience during university life is attending a drinking party like other students do. Jiro immediately rejects the idea and tells her that it sounds far too dangerous. However, Shiori responds by giving him an innocent puppy dog eyes. The moment Jiro sees that expression, all of his resistance disappears and he instantly agrees to let her go. At the drinking party, it is time for everyone to introduce themselves one by one. When it becomes Shiori's turn, she nervously stands up and introduces herself in a stiff and uncomfortable way. Instead of helping her fit in, it only makes everyone there think she is even stranger than they already did. Next, it is Jiro's turn. He decides that this is his chance to prove that even a poison master can become the life of the party. Wanting to leave a strong impression, he confidently introduces himself and then immediately tries to amaze everyone by chugging 8 glasses of beer at the same time. Mei watches the whole thing from a distance and can already tell that this is going to end badly. After Jiro finishes drinking all 8 glasses, he clenches the liquid in his stomach and then pulls it back out through his mouth in the shape of a snake by using a water-absorbent polymer trick. He believes this performance will at least earn him some applause or admiration. Instead, everyone who witnesses it is completely disgusted and unsettled by what they just saw. Trying to move past that awkward moment, one of the students notices that one last person still has not introduced himself yet. A blonde guy sitting quietly in the corner then slowly stands stands up. He calmly introduces himself as Naruko and says nothing more. The student asks him what year he is in and what major he studies, but Naruko simply replies that none of that matters. He says the only thing that matters is that he was able to meet all of them in this moment. After saying that, he casually sits back down. The girls at the party immediately find him attractive and rush toward him, asking for his phone number and trying to get his attention. Watching this happen makes Jiro realize that there are levels to this. After the party ends, they all head back home. Jiro reflects on how badly the night went for both of them, so he asks Shiori why she forced herself to attend in the first place. He says he understands that she is set to inherit a company and assumes she wanted to improve her communication skills, but he is still curious about her real reason. Shiori explains that wanting to go to the party was not actually about the company at all. She says that right before her father passed away, he told her to stop being so timid and to live life to the fullest because life is much more enjoyable that way. She then tells Jiro and Mei that she knows all she has to do is take the first step and people will eventually like her. Even so, she cannot stop herself from worrying and hesitating. Shiori also admits that she never got the chance to ask her father why he chose her to inherit the company. Because of that, she wants to become stronger, improve herself, and reach the point where she can laugh away her fear instead of being controlled by it. But Jiro quickly gives her a reality check and reminds her that there is still someone out there trying to kill her. Even after saying that, he also tells her that she is free to do whatever she wants, because no matter what happens or how dangerous things become, he is going to protect her. Hearing those words from him immediately makes Shiori blush. From a distance, Naruko is secretly watching the two of them while giving a report to Fudy. This reveals that he is the assassin Fudy hired in order to eliminate Shiori. The next day, Naruko is calmly enjoying a massage when Fudy suddenly comes over and begins scolding him for taking too long to finish disposing of Shiori. She is clearly frustrated that the task is still incomplete and keeps complaining to him. Naruko becomes irritated by her constant nagging, so he uses his special ability to interrupt her thought process. Once her mind settles down and she becomes calm again, he casually tells her that he is going to handle everything himself. Later that afternoon during class, Mei does not understand why Jiro is even bothering to pay attention to the lesson, since he is not actually a real student. Jiro simply tells her that he is finding the experience enjoyable because everything about this school life is still completely new to him. Outside the classroom, Naruko is seen meditating with intense focus. After a while, he activates his sound technique, which creates a series of high-frequency resonations. The waves spread through the area and cause the entire classroom to experience extreme gravity, forcing everyone's heads down onto their desks under the pressure. At the same time, part of the classroom ceiling suddenly breaks apart and begins falling directly toward Shiori. Without wasting a second, Jiro injects himself with his enhancement poison, which greatly boosts his physical abilities. With his body strengthened, he rushes forward and manages to save Shiori at the very last second before the debris can crush her. Naruko watches this from outside and is surprised that Jiro was able to protect Shiori even under such terrible and unfavorable conditions. He recalls that right before Jiro sprang into action, he injected himself with some kind of substance that instantly enhanced his body and movements. Naruko concludes that only someone extremely skilled could perform something like that so effectively. Because of that, he believes the only person capable of doing such a thing must be a poison master. At the same time, Jiro carefully examines the strange attack that was carried out on the classroom. After thinking it over, he comes to the conclusion that the only type of person capable of causing such an attack would be a sound master. After that, they regroup together in the hallway, and Jiro informs Shiori that whatever just happened was clearly an attempt to kill her. Mei hears this and immediately starts wondering whether they should cancel the camping trip for safety reasons. Jiro says that decision will likely depend on what Mitsuhiko wants, though deep down Jiro assumes he will probably refuse to let the trip happen after such a dangerous attack. However, to his surprise, when Shiori asks about it, Mitsuhiko actually agrees to let her go. He says that she has been looking forward to this camping trip for a long time, so he does not want to take that away from her now. But once they leave, what they do not realize is that Mitsuhiko is being controlled by Naruko's technique. A few moments later, everyone boards the bus and gets ready to leave. While riding on the bus, Jiro thinks carefully about the assassin targeting Shiori and realizes that if he truly truly wants to solve this problem, he will need to confront the assassin directly instead of only reacting to attacks. Shortly after, they arrive at the camping location. The moment they get there, Jiro immediately starts trying to impress some of the girls by showing off his cooking skills. His food and confidence begin drawing quite a lot of attention from the group. At the same time, Shiori is struggling to meet anyone or join conversations at the event, so she starts thinking of a way to draw some attention to herself. That is when she comes up with the idea of dressing up and performing some cool and funny magic tricks for everyone. Her little performance ends up pleasing the crowd, and the students around her begin enjoying themselves and paying attention to her. At the end of the day, Jiro praises Shiori for how well she handled the magic trick performance. Shiori shyly explains that it was just a small skill she learned from being around her father's business world. But just then, one of the students suddenly speaks up and asks everyone if they have ever heard of the curse of Chladni. It is clear that nobody understands the story, so he begins explaining it. He says that this place used to be a village, and the locals made offerings to their nearby deity all the way until World War II. According to the tale, once every 2 years, whenever the crops failed, the villagers would choose the youngest child in the village and lock them inside a nearby shrine as a sacrifice. He continues by saying that after the war, they abandoned those customs. However, for some unknown reason, a series of natural disasters then struck the village. Even though nearly 1,000 people once lived there, it did not take long before every last one of them was wiped out. The group becomes tense listening to the story, but it then turns out that everything was just a scary tale the student made up on the spot, so everyone relaxes and loosens up again. After that, the girls decide to play a game together and begin wondering where Naruko is, since nobody has seen him in quite a while. Meanwhile, Naruko is actually moving quickly and deeply through the forest. He has already finished setting multiple traps meant specifically for Shiori, and from the look on his face alone, it is obvious that he is completely confident he will come out on top. Meanwhile, the group decides to have more fun together by going to a spooky shrine. To make it more exciting, they set up a photo stand along the path so they can take pictures and keep the memory. After arriving, they split into smaller groups, and Jiro ends up walking with Shiori. As they move forward, Jiro remembers what Mei told him earlier. She explained that you could make a girl think she likes you by putting her in a scary situation, so her fast heartbeat feels like love. Jiro understood what she meant, but he felt uneasy about how much she seemed to enjoy the idea. While they walk, Shiori begins to apologize to Jiro for coming to the party. She says that if she had just stayed at home, his job would have been much easier, and he would not have needed to come out here and deal with all this. Jiro tells her not to worry about it. He explains that a place like this actually reduces the types of attacks they might face, which makes things a bit safer in some ways. Then he asks her to promise him something. He tells her to do her best to enjoy herself. Moments like this do not happen often, and he believes it would be a waste to let fear ruin it, even if someone is trying to kill her. Hearing this makes Shiori feel touched, so she decides to seal the memory by taking out her selfie stick and takes a picture with him. After taking the photo, she looks at it and freezes in shock. Jiro's face in the picture looks like a strange spirit. Confused, she quickly looks around and realizes that Jiro is no longer beside her. Panic sets in, and she starts running, trying to find him. After a moment, she sees him standing near a log, but when he turns around, his body begins to change into a dark, unnatural spirit. The creature then starts chasing her, but she manages to get away for a while and locks herself in a nearby building. The spirit somehow manages to appear right in front of Shiori again, cutting off her path completely, and it slowly begins walking toward her step by step, making her feel even more terrified than before. Just as it gets close enough, a light suddenly shines over its face, and it is revealed to be her dad. This completely confuses her, because she knows for a fact that her dad is dead and should not be standing here in front of her. Her legs give out from the shock, and she falls to the ground. Her dad then calmly sits down on the floor in front of her, acting as if nothing is wrong, and offers her a drink in a very casual way. Shiori, still confused, asks how she is even able to talk to him right now. In response, her dad explains that she is currently hovering between life and death, existing in a strange state as an offering to Lord Chladni. Hearing this, Shiori quickly takes the chance to ask something that has been on her mind for a long time. She asks him why he chose her to be the successor of the company in the first place. However, before he can give her a proper answer, his his face suddenly splits in two, and another face emerges from within it. This new face speaks in a colder tone and tells her that he deeply regrets ever making her the successor in the first place. Those words hit Shiori hard and break her heart instantly. Before she can even react properly, a red design spreads over her eyes, showing that she is being brainwashed and losing control of her thoughts. The figure continues speaking, telling Shiori that she will always be a failure in his eyes and that she will never live up to his expectations. Then he shifts her attention toward a nearby rope and tells her that it would be better for her to just end her miserable life by using the rope. Under the influence of his manipulation, Shiori gradually starts to believe his words and falls into a dangerously hopeless state. At this point, it becomes clear that the father she saw earlier was not real at all, but actually the same spirit from before that had taken on his appearance to deceive her. Just before she goes through with it, Shiori suddenly remembers a moment from her past when she was able to make people happy. That memory gives her a burst of emotion, and she loudly says that she wants to be able to do that again and make people smile more often. Acting on that feeling, she suddenly runs toward a set of doors nearby and jumps out over a cliff without thinking it through. Almost immediately after jumping, she realizes how dumb that decision was as she begins falling straight down. While she is falling, she starts to think about all the people who have protected her and helped her, and she realizes that if she dies here, she will be letting all of them down. In a desperate attempt to survive, she quickly reaches into her backpack and pulls out her umbrella. For a short moment, it manages to slow her fall slightly, giving her a bit of hope, but not long after. The umbrella breaks apart, leaving her falling again with nothing to stop her. Right before she becomes a pancake, Jiro suddenly appears at the last second. He quickly throws down a layer of water-absorbent polymer beneath them and then jumps in to catch her while landing safely on top of it. Shiori looks up at Jiro and feels genuinely relieved and happy that he came to save her in time. Meanwhile, Jiro quickly realizes exactly what the assassin has been trying to do this entire time. They cannot kill Shiori directly because that would immediately make them a suspect. So instead, they are trying to create a situation where it looks like Shiori either took her own life or died in what seems like an accident. Not long after that realization, Naruko arrives at the scene with a calm smirk on his face. Jiro comments on how clever Naruko's trick was, acknowledging that it worked perfectly. He explains that the moment Shiori took that picture at the photo stand, Naruko used a shockwave attack on him that scrambled his sense of direction and separated him from Shiori, making it easier to target her alone. Jiro then tells Shiori that they cannot fight Naruko from their current position and that they need to run away as quickly as possible. However, Shiori tells him that she cannot even stand properly right now because her knees have completely given out from everything that just happened. With no other choice, she awkwardly wraps herself around Jiro for support, which makes him blush slightly from the sudden closeness. Jiro then takes out a dose of his augment serum and injects himself with it to boost his ability, and immediately after that, he starts running into the forest while carrying Shiori with him. Despite all of this, Naruko does not seem bothered in the slightest. Instead, he casually pulls out a massage chair, sits down comfortably, and begins to relax as if he is not in any rush at all. While Jiro and Shiori are moving through the forest, Naruko uses his mind whisper ability to interfere with their thoughts and disturb their minds from a distance. Jiro quickly realizes what is happening and immediately hands Shiori a pair of earplugs, telling her to use them to block out the sound. However, Shiori tells him that she already has something better. She pulls out a pair of cute noise-canceling headphones. She puts one on herself and gives the other pair to Jiro, allowing both of them to block out the outside noise completely. However, Naruko tells them that trying to block out the sound was actually their biggest mistake. He explains that when the sound continues to build up without release, it becomes powerful enough to tear through skin itself. Almost immediately, one of the sound attacks moves toward Jiro, but he reacts quickly and manages to dodge it with sharp movement, which briefly surprises Naruko. Even so, Naruko quickly calms himself down because he knows that Jiro was never the real target in the first place. At that moment, Shiori's eyes are covered again by the same red design, showing that her mind has been taken over once more. Without warning, she jumps off Jiro and begins running deeper into the forest on her own. After running for a while, she suddenly stops as she begins to see a hallucination forming in front of her. The figure takes the shape of her uncle, Mitsuhiko. He looks at her coldly and tells her that he sees her as nothing more than a bird burden, someone who only causes problems. His words cut deeply into her, and her heart begins to break under the weight of them. In reality, it is Naruko speaking through the hallucination, using her pain against her. Just as the situation gets worse, Jiro suddenly appears out of nowhere and kicks the fake Mitsuhiko in the face with force, knocking the illusion apart instantly. Without wasting time, he turns to Shiori and uses a toxin to put her to sleep, knowing that her staying awake in this state will only cause more harm to her. Naruko watches this happen from a distance and is not surprised. He admits to himself that someone like Jiro, who is skilled with poison, would be capable of overcoming his hallucination tactics. Jiro then speaks out loud toward Naruko, making it clear that he understands how his abilities work. He explains that Naruko's illusions and brainwashing reach deep into a person's mind and pull out their most painful and traumatic memories, turning them into weapons against them. He acknowledges that this makes Shiori an easy target, but he also makes it clear that Naruko is underestimating her. Jiro firmly states that Shiori is stronger than he thinks and that she will be able to overcome this. At the same time, Mei is moving through the area while tracking both Jiro and Shiori. She eventually comes over a nearby fence and spots them, but she is caught off guard by the position Shiori is wrapped around Jiro in. Putting that aside, Jiro quickly tells Mei to take Shiori and get her to safety as soon as possible. He understands that given how the situation has gone so far, Naruko must already be thinking of a new way to kill him, especially since his plans have already failed twice. Because of that, Jiro decides that he will go and deal with Naruko himself. Meanwhile, Naruko is thinking exactly as Jiro expected. He plans to kill Jiro first and then go after Shiori afterward, and he even seems excited by the idea. Naruko considers the situation and realizes that Jiro's poison needles will not be effective if he cannot get close enough to use them. Because of this, he becomes curious about what Jiro plans to do now, especially since he is making sure to keep his distance at all times. Jiro suddenly charges forward into the forest, moving quickly as he tries to cut through Naruko's hidden trap wires using his poison liquid. However, when the liquid makes contact, he is shocked to see that it does not work at all and instead simply bounces off the wires without cutting them. Naruko explains that his strings vibrate at an extremely high speed, so there is no way for any liquid to properly touch or affect them. Because of that, Jiro's poison liquid cannot cut through them at all. After saying this, Naruko decides that it is time to end everything. He uses his modified bloodline technique and summons a giant spirit golem, which appears immediately and starts attacking Jiro without hesitation. Jiro reacts quickly and manages to dodge the golem's attacks, avoiding being crushed. However, in the middle of the fight, Naruko suddenly shudders in shock. He realizes that something is wrong because his golem has suddenly stopped moving. Confused, he immediately jumps out of his bath barrel and begins sprinting toward the location. This situation makes no sense to him because he never felt any of his wires being cut or disturbed. When Naruko finally arrives at the scene, he sees what happened. The golem has been completely restrained by thick tree vines and branches that have wrapped tightly around its body. Jiro then explains calmly that he used a special type of plant medicine that causes the surrounding vegetation to grow rapidly and uncontrollably. He points out that Naruko's technique has a weakness because the trees and plants are growing so quickly. Naruko cannot play precise notes on his strings, which disrupts his control. Even after hearing this, Naruko does not panic at all. Instead, he calmly explains that fear always exists deep inside people's minds, waiting quietly. He says that he has already seen those hidden fears within others, and all he needs to do is make them grow stronger. Not long after that, the students from the trip notice the giant golem in the distance, and they immediately become terrified by what they see. That sudden wave of fear is exactly what Naruko needs. He uses it to take control of their minds and makes them believe in the curse of Chladni. The leader of the tour suddenly speaks up and declares that they must offer a child as a sacrifice to calm Chladni's anger. Since there is no actual child with them, they decide that the youngest person present will be used instead. The students then begin taking out their IDs and checking their birth dates one by one. It quickly becomes clear that Shiori is the youngest among them. As soon as they realize this, Shiori and Mei immediately start running away from the group. The other students, now under Naruko's control, begin shouting for them to come back, insisting that sacrificing Shiori is the only way to appease Chladni. Meanwhile, deeper in the forest, Naruko calmly cuts some wood and uses uses his strings to quickly form a violin. Seeing this, Jiro immediately prepares himself because he can tell that Naruko is about to use his modified bloodline increment. That was episode 5. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.